I made a redstone machine to automatically farm the new copper golem statues. Hello there, Ray here, and there is no crafting recipe for the copper golem statue, so the only way you can get them is by placing a carved pumpkin over a copper block. So the way the machine works is that the previous copper golem that froze will be right here. Then we can actually detect that there is a guy over here. And this is because they actually work with comparators, which is normally used to detect what type of position they're in. But I'm using that just to determine that there's actually a frozen golem over there. Then I'm pushing the redstone all the way over here, where I put it through a little bit of redstone logic. Now normally you guys don't see my ugly redstone because I compacted and simplified, but this is what redstone normally looks like. And if you're doing redstone yourself, you shouldn't be afraid that your redstone doesn't look pretty, but instead should just focus on making sure it works properly. So once we have a frozen statue golem in there, this torch will turn off. But for the machine to start up, we need to make sure this torch turns off, and this will only happen if there is a block placed in here. And this is where the player comes in. The player will have to be AFKing here, where they're given these oxidized copper blocks. Now to get to the copper blocks needed for this farm, I do have several different types of copper farms. Plus I will also be showing some more new copper farms soon, so you got some more cool videos to look forward to from me. And to convert the clean copper into this oxidized copper, I do have a second machine that can actually do that as well automatically. And they're just going to be sitting here and holding down right click. And what will happen is that as soon as the block is in there, it will then turn off this torch right here. And then after this torch and this torch are both turned off, then this redstone will turn off, turning this redstone torch on. You can see that if I place a block in, this will turn on. And this is called an AND switch, meaning that this and this torch have to be in a certain state before something else will activate. And then we're going to put this torch into a repeater right here. And this is going to power this comparator fade out clock, where it's just a signal that goes around in a circle with comparators. And every time it goes around one time, it slowly gets weaker and weaker until it completely fades back to being off again. But during the time that it is on, it's also going to send a signal all the way over here, which is going to extend this piston and keep it extended. This does two things. It pushes the copper blocks all the way over here, where the block will be placed right in here. At the same time, it will also extend the piston so the player cannot place in a new copper block. This will be important for the next step. Did you know every like on the video will produce a happy copper golem? And then what happens after this is that the redstone signal that was in this fade out clock will continue to go this direction, go up here, activate this dispenser. Now to get the pumpkins needed for the farm, you can first use my pumpkin farm to get those automatically. And then use my pumpkin to carved pumpkin converter, which allows you to AFK and convert pumpkins into carved pumpkins. And then once you got the carved pumpkins, then you can have them automatically put into this dispenser here. This is the one that's going to place the carved pumpkin on top of the oxidized copper block. This will make a oxidized copper chest as well as oxidized copper golem entity. And it's important that it is already oxidized because this means it'll be really close to freezing. The only reason why this guy is not freezing is because he's on top of a chest, and they have to be on top of a solid block in order to turn into a statue. And then at this point, the redstone continues going by, and then it's going to activate this dispenser, which is going to drop out a TNT block right down in this hole here. And then the TNT will get washed over towards this previous frozen copper golem, as well as the new oxidized copper chest. The only problem is if the TNT would blow up in this water, it doesn't actually destroy any blocks. So if we watch it right now, we can see it blows up, but nothing happens other than the golem gets a little bit of damage. So we actually need to retract this water here so that there's no water here when the TNT blows up. Now we can't have no water here all the time for another reason, which I'll point out just in a second. But the way I do retract the water is I just come over here with the same redstone signal that activates everything else, and we come in and extend this piston. Now when the piston extends, what's going to happen is that the water source that was here was taking this little shortcut, meaning it could reach farther. But now this second water source is the only one that's supplying flowing water, but since it's farther away, it ends up flowing and not as far. So if we look at it, we can see there's now a gap here. So now if the TNT would activate, the TNT will come down here, be close enough to both the golem as well as the copper oxidized chest, and it'll destroy those two items and they'll fall downwards. And then they'll get picked up by the hopper minecart and pushed into this chest here. And here you can see all the different types of oxidized copper golem statues that we're collecting. When they get blown up, they are considered different, not only because of the different poses that they can have, but each of them is just considered different, even though you can normally stack them. This might change in the future, but at the moment you just get a whole bunch of variation. And if we take a bunch of these guys out of the chest and then place them down, you see they do keep their same animations as their items. So the farm just doesn't produce the default, but also produces all the different positions that they can be found in. But if you want the different levels of oxidization, you need to come in with an axe and right click them. This will change them from the completely oxidized to the weathered, then to the exposed variation, and then to the normal copper variation. And then if you clean them one more time, this will actually bring them back to life as an entity. So in a way, these are all entities that can be stored, which is really helpful in having an entity that you can actually carry with you. This is similar to like an iron golem that you can produce, or snow golem, or like a chicken from a chicken egg, or ender pearl can produce an endermite, which is nice in scenarios like where you have a wither cage and the wither needs to focus on an entity. And if you don't want them to oxidize anymore, you can always put wax on them so that they never freeze. Or if you want to keep these guys at certain colors, then you can also wax them as well. But you also get the oxidized copper chest as well, which does let you craft a copper chest without any wood. You know what else doesn't use any wood? Clicking that subscribe button. And if you really want to support me, join me on Patreon, like all these lovely folks here, to get tons of different perks, including having your name at the end of my videos. Now in Java Edition, we can get an unlimited amount of TNT through dupers, but since there's no TNT dupers here in Bedrock Edition, I just put in a dispenser. You could use other types of explosions that are renewable, such as like a wither cage, or even using the end dimension obsidian platform to automatically mine down these blocks. But going back to why we actually need to have that water come back, you might have noticed that the copper guy that was on top of here fell downwards after the chest he was standing on blew up. And this is how the farm works, except we want the copper guy to freeze right here and not over here like he did. And this is why we have to have the water source extend and reach that second spot. Otherwise he will freeze here just like this guy did. And then when the next TNT comes down, it will block the explosions from destroying the copper chest. And we can see this. So if we drop down a piece of TNT, the TNT is way back there now. And you see it gets stuck in the water and is unable to actually destroy either of these blocks. And even if the water was gone, it just ends up destroying the statue. And because we're trying to make the TNT blow up as much as possible per TNT so we don't waste them, we want to blow up both of the chest and the copper statue. Now in Bedrock Edition, you can pull and push both of the chest as well as the copper golem. Although pushing tile entities like chest is normal in Bedrock Edition, it's not something you could do in Java Edition, and I was trying to design this farm so that it could potentially be applied to both Java Edition and Bedrock Edition. But when it comes to the extra copper golems, we don't know if they're going to be able to be moved like normal blocks in Java Edition, similar to how like cauldrons can be moved even with different levels of water, or if they're going to be considered tile entities like brewing stands, which cannot be moved with pistons. And because of this reason, I tried to avoid using pistons to move these in my design. And since they are all individually stacked in this chest here, I think they might be considered tile entities once they get applied to Java Edition. But that doesn't matter because in my design, like I say, I don't actually move either the copper golem or the copper chest. So after you can see these two get exploded, the copper golem gets dropped down, then the water comes back in again and pushes him back over here. That way he doesn't freeze in that spot over there. And then shortly after being dropped down, he will freeze into a block. There can't be anything else in this area, otherwise he won't freeze. But once he's frozen, then we can detect this with our comparator once again and start the whole cycle all over again. I'll simplify and compact this farm when we get closer to the full release, and I show how you can farm every other item in the game of Minecraft with this playlist here, with the corresponding spreadsheet linked in the description. Bye bye!